Out there, let's take a look at outside at the moment. That Arctic blast is no joke. Temperatures are in the low 20s across the state. I certainly hope you're staying warm and staying safe as our next winter weather system rolls in. With that, we'll bring in Fox 25 meteorologist Ross Muma, who has your back with tonight's forecast. Ross, I'm hearing some freezing rain, maybe even some sleet is coming our way.
Yeah, unfortunately, we got a little bit of an icy and dicey start to the week here across Oklahoma, David. And even a little bit of that has already arrived here tonight out across our Fox 25 Skycam network. You can see there down in Bricktown, our camera's actually frozen up a little bit from some very, very light drizzle that moved through here earlier this evening. But overall, we're really not expecting much freezing rain overnight tonight. Again, temperatures in the low 20s right now. Going to dip down a little bit further into the mid to upper teens overnight this evening. So overall, mostly cloudy to overcast skies. Very cold and breezy evening here across the state. But like David mentioned, we've got some pretty significant winter weather on the way here starting tomorrow and then continuing through Wednesday. We already have winter weather advisory in effect here across much of western, central, and eastern Oklahoma, with then a winter storm watch in effect there across the southern part of the state. And again, this is all going to start tomorrow. Temperatures still going to be very, very cold in the mid 20s, but starting early tomorrow morning, right around 7 to 8 a.m. That's when that first precip is going to start to move through. Likely just going to see some light sleet here across central Oklahoma, including the Oklahoma City metro area. And then as further south you go in the state, a lot of that sleet is going to turn over to a light freezing rain here across south central and southeastern Oklahoma. So you're going to want to stay tuned. I'm going to be timing out your day hour by hour tomorrow. Plus, a look ahead at Tuesday, which could have much more sleet and freezing rain in store for us here across Oklahoma. I've got that all covered for you coming up in just a little bit.
Thanks, Ross. Now is a good time to download the Fox 25 Stormwatch weather app. You can have access to live radar and weather alerts right on your phone and tablet. Just search KOKH Weather in the Google Play or iTunes Store and download it for free. Oklahoma State University is holding a statewide campaign to educate parents and young adults about fentanyl poisoning. Fox 25's Katie Arata spoke with experts at OSU. So, Katie, what more can you tell us about their efforts?
Well, David, OSU is holding their One Pill Can Kill campaign in conjunction with the DEA to spread awareness about the alarming rise of deaths related directly to fentanyl poisoning. According to the DEA, fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is about 100 times more potent than morphine. They say the dangerous drug is being mixed in with other illicit drugs to increase its potency and is often pressed into pills made to look like legitimate prescription opioids.
Last year, the DEA reported that they seized 50 million counterfeit pills that were mimics of things like Adderall, Xanax, Percocet, and they're nearly identical. Like the average person may not be able to know which is which.
According to the DEA, in 2021, 40% of all fentanyl-laced fake prescription pills contained a potentially lethal dose of the drug. In 2022, that number has risen to 60%.
We know that fentanyl is a major problem in this country with overdose. Last year, the CDC reported a record high of 108,000 deaths related to drug overdose. Of those where opioids were involved, about 75% of them were related to fentanyl.
Because of these alarming statistics, OSU is launching the statewide One Pill Can Kill campaign with the DEA.
And it's something that really sticks in your mind. One pill can kill. And we feel that this is a message that everybody needs to hear because it's about counterfeit prescription drugs that are laced with fentanyl without the people purchasing them being aware of it.
The campaign's goal is to educate the public at large and the most at risk to the dangers of fentanyl poisoning.
With this type of thing going on, especially on college campuses, for example, where kids might share prescription drugs or order Adderall to help them stay up late and study and things like that. If you don't really know where your prescription drug came from, you really should be very cautious and not take it.
The One Pill Can Kill campaign will be featured in a variety of print media, billboards, and social media. For more information on the campaign and the dangers of fentanyl, go to our website, okcfox.com. Reporting live in studio, Katie Arata, Fox 25 News.
Thank you, Katie. One person found dead in their home this morning after a shooting near Western Avenue and 25th Street. Police say they responded to this shooting around 12:30 a.m. A suspect has been identified and police have begun their search. This investigation is still ongoing. A man suspected of domestic violence was arrested last night in Tulsa after a high-speed chase. Officers say they were investigating a domestic assault after learning a woman had been kidnapped from her job last night and held against her will. Police say the victim is pregnant in her third trimester. The victim says she was able to escape after the suspect, Jeffrey Gray, allegedly barricaded her inside his apartment and left. Gray is now in custody facing multiple charges. New details tonight about a mass shooting in Baltimore. One person is dead and 4 others were hurt, including 2 young children. Police responded to shots fired in West Baltimore last night, finding 5 victims. 2 men were shot, 1 hurt and 1 killed. A woman's car was caught in the crossfire. She crashed into a pole after getting hit, and 2 toddlers in the car suffered head trauma. 1 had critical injuries.
I'm talking to folks that look like me, to black men in Baltimore. I see a lot of folks trying to be acting like they tough, but they really weak, because only weak people shoot somebody when you know children are right there.
And police are investigating who suspects were targeting. They encourage any witnesses to help them out. And there are more calls for police reform after Tyre Nichols died. Those calls are quite similar to those made after George Floyd died in 2020.
Hopefully from this situation that we have reform, that police get better training.
Memphis city leaders introduced new policies after the death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor to cut down on officers using excessive force. Now, since 2020, officers have been required to use de-escalation strategies and intervene if other officers are being too aggressive. They also have to report any use or threat of use of force. The president of the Memphis NAACP says it's clear the new policies weren't followed here.
There are things that have been put in place, but we just have to, I think, demand implementation. So what good is a policy if it's not implemented?
All 5 police officers involved in the incident were fired 2 weeks after Nichols' arrest. And Democratic lawmakers in Tennessee respond to the video of Tyre Nichols' arrest. Speaking in Memphis, leading members of the Tennessee House Democratic Caucus announced their plans to introduce several bills on police reform. The state representatives also mentioned proposing a bill that would address police procedures.
We've got to move ahead and take that next step and advance the discussion past de-escalation into non-escalation techniques. If you don't get to the escalation point, ain't nothing to de-escalate.
Tennessee Democrats hold just 24 out of 99 seats in the state House. Now, the caucus says they're confident those measures will receive bipartisan support. 6 people are dead in a crash in upstate New York. It happened on State Highway 37 near the Canadian border. A box truck and an express bus collided around 6 a.m. on Saturday. 3 survivors were taken to local hospitals. 1 is in critical condition. Authorities are still investigating how this crash happened. And just weeks after leading the Georgia Bulldogs to win the college football national championship for a second time, police arrested quarterback Stetson Bennett for public intoxication. Dallas police got a call early this morning saying he was drunk and banging on doors. Bennett told reporters last week he would be training for his pro career in Fort Worth, Texas, and he is projected to be selected in the upcoming NFL draft. The brutal arrest and death of Tyre Nichols has shocked the nation, but Tulsa's religious leaders say it came as no surprise. Morning Star Baptist Church hosted an interfaith vigil today honoring the 29-year-old from Memphis. Sam Gelfand with our sister station in Tulsa captured a community's exasperation.
When Dr. Rodney Goss saw that video from Memphis, he didn't see Tyre Nichols. He saw a brother.
And I'm just at a place where silence is complicity.
He is mourning a brother.
You know what I just got finished doing? Calling my mama.
Good.
I had to call my mom. I was so messed up, I called my mom.
But he is fighting alongside his brothers and sisters, fighting for systemic change.
We want to make it loud and clear that we're past the kumbaya moments.
Fighting alongside Tulsa's religious leaders like Reverend Marlon Levenhar.
We want to gather together to heal the collective emotional impact on the psyche of our community, and particularly the African American community.
Because the sad truth is, vigils like these happen far too often.
This just takes the scab off of a wound that really has never healed. This doesn't surprise us.
Hopefully, if we can make change, we won't have to keep holding vigils like this.
I've just had enough, and I'm very angry, and I don't care who know about it. We just need to make some noise, enough noise, until some change comes.
Goss wants accountability, transparency, and large-scale police reform. And so do his followers.
Anybody here gonna stand with us? I said, is there anybody in this house that's gonna stand with us? Because being black in America is not easy. Being black in America is painful, and it's hard, and I'm angry.
Trauma lives in our bodies, and one of the ways that we can deal with that is by singing together, by moving our bodies together, and by recognizing that we can change things.
And as Tulsans raise their voices in song, prayer, and protest, they know in their hearts that change will come. In North Tulsa, Sam Gelfand, News Channel 8.
And here in Oklahoma City, community leaders host a public forum after the Tyre Nichols video release to start a conversation between worried community members and local law enforcement. Now, community members were able to discuss issues they say aren't anything new.
It's an ongoing issue, and it's a systemic issue. So it gets worse, and it's not really that it gets worse. It's happened since the inception of this country. It's just exposed more. So it's not that it's gotten worse, it's just that it's captured more, and the public is able to see that and respond to that.
The forum happened at the Tower Theater, hosted by members of civil rights groups, council members, and more. Representatives from OKCPD, Moore PD, Edmond PD, Oklahoma Highway Patrol, and the Oklahoma County Sheriff were also there. Moving on, today is National Girls and Women in Sports Day. To highlight this, Thunder Cares put on a special camp for some lucky young girls. The Oklahoma Dreamcatchers is a Native American women's competitive team of 3rd through 6th grade girls. Today, they got the chance to work on their skills and their confidence.
Sports is a powerful tool, and so we're here to use it to inspire and empower the next generation, and that's what you're seeing here today. It's a female-led event, so we've got our female coaches out here, and it's nice for those girls to see women in power in those situations, in the lead role such as this. They're out there having a blast, but what I think is really interesting is that when they came into the facility, just the kind of the looks on their faces as they looked around, they really understand the magnitude of the opportunity that was here today, but it's us that gets the pleasure of hosting them here today.
Hey, that sounds like fun. And to make things better, the Thunder Zone, Isaiah Joe and Usman Jang were at the camp meeting and playing with these young athletes. And check out this casting call for Native American basketball players. It's for a new Netflix movie called Res Ball. The Oklahoma director behind Reservation Dogs helped write it, and LeBron James is producing it. We have the details to try and land a role at OKCFox.com. Might check that out. Coming up, a new popular AI has teachers worried about the integrity of their classrooms. Plus, classified documents turning up everywhere they don't belong. What lawmakers are saying and how Americans are feeling. The new AI program called ChatGPT may be a hit with your children, but many schools are banning it due to cheating concerns. Angela Brown with the National Desk explains.
Students can use ChatGPT to write an essay just by using voice commands. ChatGPT launched in November by OpenAI soon after educators started raising red flags. ChatGPT has superhuman abilities. It can solve math equations on a dime, write research reports with a voice command. But some educators say it could be used for something else.
This is a perfect plagiarism tool.
ChatGPT now getting silenced in school districts across the country. New York City, Baltimore, Seattle, Los Angeles have blocked the site on district devices and networks. Max Chafkin wrote this article asking, what are the new AI chatbots for?
The school districts that are responding to this, with skepticism are making a reasonable decision.
While others argue educators should embrace ChatGPT as a tool that can be used to strengthen student learning and understanding.
We can focus on having much deeper content, or we could focus on more persuasive papers and things that would actually be more business relevant than we traditionally do in the classrooms.
ChatGPT creating shortcuts in education and also possibly redefining the workplace. Experts say jobs that rely on skills like coding will have to undergo some changes.
Everything that can be digitized will be digitized, whether you like it or not. And so we'll have to be creative and figure out jobs that will not be digitized, and that's where we're going.
A spokesperson for OpenAI, which developed ChatGPT, said it is already developing mitigations to help anyone identify text generated by that system. ChatGPT is already off to a fast start. After launching in November, it attracted over 1 million users in its first 5 days. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
Federal lawmakers are hearing more and more calls for police reform. Democrats are using the momentum to renew past legislation about this. This includes the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and Republican Senator Tim Scott's Justice Act. Some Republicans say the federal government shouldn't be involved with local law enforcement.
If we can incentivize certain things, I still think you want to keep this at the state and local level. This is a law enforcement issue. You start getting the federal government involved in databases and federalizing things, that gets, because the federal government screws it up so many times.
That does not absolve us. Under the federal Constitution, we have standards, due process standards and others that we are responsible for. But we need a national conversation on this. We do not need denial or willful indifference.
Jordan, who you just heard from, says he would consider looking at federal rules on police training. He clarifies, though, no amount of training would have changed what we all saw in the Tyree Nichols video. And there's new data showing what people think about the classified document scandal. The survey found 67% of Americans are concerned about the discovery of classified documents at President Biden's home and former office. That includes 33% who say it's very concerning. Now, 67% of Americans say they are worried about the documents found at Donald Trump's home, with 36% rather saying this worries them. And the mishandling of classified documents has started a bipartisan demand for transparency from the Justice Department. Senators Mark Warner and Marco Rubio say they want access to the classified documents. Now, those senators are in charge of the Senate Intelligence Committee, highlighting the urgency of the situation, calling it a matter of national security.
Our job here is intelligence oversight. The Justice Department has had the Trump documents about 6 months, the Biden documents about 3 months. Our job's not to figure out if somebody mishandled those, but our job is to make sure there's not an intelligence compromise.
These are probably materials we already have access to. We just don't know which ones they are. And it's not about being nosy. Here's the bottom line. If in fact those documents were very sensitive, materials were sensitive, and they pose a counterintelligence or national security threat to the United States, then the intelligence agencies are tasked with the job of coming up with ways to mitigate that.
The Justice Department says they will cooperate with congressional requests for information, but clarified they cannot share materials that are subject to an ongoing investigation. And House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and President Joe Biden will meet on Wednesday to discuss the national debt ceiling. Biden wants to raise the spending limit without conditions, but House Republicans are pushing back. McCarthy says Medicare and Social Security cuts are off the table, but everything else, including military spending, is being considered.
I don't think there's anyone in America who doesn't agree that there's some wasteful Washington spending that we can eliminate. So I want to sit down together, work out an agreement that we can move forward to put us on a path to balance, at the same time not put any of our debt in jeopardy at the same time.
And going off of that, the U.S. reached its $31 trillion debt limit earlier this month. The Treasury Department is taking what it calls extraordinary measures in order to pay the government's bills until sometime in June. Now, lawmakers must either raise the debt limit or come to an agreement on a short-term extension. And former President Donald Trump is back on his campaign trail, stopping by South Carolina after New Hampshire yesterday. The former president's speeches in New Hampshire and South Carolina looked rather different from his usual rallies, that is. It had only a couple hundred people in attendance each, but that did not stop him from repeating the same promises he's made before.
We need a fighter who can stand up to the left, who can stand up to the swamp, stand up to the media, stand up to the deep state. Am I allowed to say stand up to the rhinos too? I think we can say that. I think we can say that.
And McMaster was among the group of first state-level officials to endorse Trump during his 2016 campaign. We'll be right back. As hospitals across the country continue to face problems with staffing, COVID vaccine mandates are playing a role in that situation. Cheryl Atkinson with Full Measure has this report from Houston.
My name is Dr. Venu Gilapalli. I was on staff at Houston Methodist The Woodlands and got suspended and ultimately terminated due to the vaccine mandate.
You did not want to get vaccinated?
No.
Dr. Venu Gilapalli is among an outspoken group of medical professionals once affiliated with Houston Methodist. Methodist was the first hospital system in the nation to require COVID vaccines. It's rare to find medical professionals from such a prominent hospital system speaking on camera on the topic, punished, they say, for using independent medical judgment, which they consider a hallmark of sound medicine. Dr. Mary Crow is an oncologist hematologist who, like Dr. Gilapalli, lost privileges to practice medicine at Methodist for refusing the vaccine.
You have the right to put up your hand and say, what the hell is going on here? Please explain this to me, and not risk obliteration of your personal and professional life.
Houston Methodist began firing unvaccinated employees in June of 2021. With Houston Methodist leading the pack, within 3 months it was reported that at least 174 health systems were mandating COVID vaccines. But these seasoned professionals claim the vaccine mandate didn't make patients safer at all. Owen Robinson is a critical care registered nurse.
At that time, the management in the Methodist ICU forced 2 nurses to come in sick, positive with COVID, with symptoms, fevers, and take care of patients in the ICU.
We wanted to hear Houston Methodist's side of the story, but a spokesman declined our interview request and did not answer our questions. In an interview in June of 2021, Methodist CEO Dr. Boom said the hospital's policies were safety and science-driven.
We have a set of very, very strong values as an institution that puts patients at the center. So when people say to me, I don't want to put patients at the center by their actions, yeah, they're not people who are a fit for our organization.
Meantime, industry insiders are pointing to a global crisis in healthcare staffing. In New York, 100% of hospitals are reporting nursing shortages. Texas, where Methodist is based, is also said to be suffering an ongoing hospital staffing crisis. In a statement, Methodist told us, we are not having nurse shortages.
That's a big problem.
Whatever the case, this group insists that punishing highly credentialed healthcare professionals for their medical judgment will translate to poor patient care in the larger picture. A court has ordered New York City to reinstate 1,750 workers fired over the mandate with back pay. The city is appealing. For Full Measure, I'm Cheryl Atkinson.
The FDA and their advisors are developing a long-term protection plan against COVID. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins reports.
Debate over annual COVID vaccinations taking place as fewer and fewer Americans seem concerned about staying up to date on their shots. Just 15% of people getting the latest booster released last fall.
Well, I think there is a certain amount of vaccine fatigue.
Lots of people have gotten vaccinated. There are people who want to travel. They want to get back to their normal lives.
Some remain skeptical an annual COVID shot is necessary. Worried Big Pharma is pushing the idea to make money. Worries illustrated by this exchange between a Pfizer research director, Jordan Tristan Walker, and an undercover Project Veritas journalist.
Pfizer ultimately is thinking about mutating COVID?
Well, that is not what we say to the public. No. We're exploring, no, you know how the virus keeps mutating?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things we're exploring is, why don't we just mutate it ourselves so we could create unpredictably develop new vaccines, right?
Dr. William Schaffner, an infectious disease professor at Vanderbilt University Medical Center, argues the push for annual boosters isn't coming from the manufacturers, but from the scientists and public health authorities.
People such as myself, I don't have any stock in any of those companies, but I know, as with flu vaccine, ignoring the problem is only going to fill up our hospitals.
A recently published study shows the best protection against COVID is actually hybrid immunity, the kind found in vaccinated people who also caught the virus.
You still need the vaccine on top of that. Both of them combined, it's synergy.
A big question surrounding annual COVID shots is who would need them? Some experts argue frequently vaccinating younger, healthy people isn't practical or necessary. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
There are 6 habits that can help lower your risk of dementia and help avoid memory decline. A Chinese study followed nearly 30,000 people over a decade, and here's what they found worked. Eating a balanced diet, exercising the mind and body regularly, keeping in touch with others, and not drinking or smoking. It's not an all or nothing situation though. They say the more, the better. And parents everywhere feel the impact of lost sleep, that is. So the findings of a new study are not surprising. Researchers looked at the vicious cycle of sleep loss and stress tied to kids. Disrupted sleep in parents and kids each lead to more stress, and more stress leads to even less sleep. Experts say you need to invest in sleep as a family because anytime anyone isn't sleeping well, it affects the rest. Bed Bath & Beyond has defaulted on its credit line. Company officials say there isn't enough money to pay down debts. Shares for Bed Bath & Beyond plunged Thursday afternoon. The stock closed 22% down, and according to a filing, the retailer is looking at restructuring debt under bankruptcy. The company is closing stores and negotiating lease deals with landlords to try and cut costs, but warned the moves may not be successful. The U.S. labor market saw improvements across the board last year, with the national unemployment rate falling to 3.5% in December, matching its lowest reading in 50 years. Some states are seeing even lower rates. And according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Utah had the nation's lowest unemployment rate at 2.2% last month. And on the flip side, Nevada experienced the worst jobless rate at 5.2%. And Fox 25 meteorologist Ross Muma has your back with tonight's forecast. Ross, it was so cold today, and then we're expecting more cold weather tomorrow. Come on, man. When's that good news coming back? I need some good news.
I know, right? Well, the first part of January, it was nice and warm, so we kind of got the gift before all the cold and nasty weather is now coming in to kind of end the month of January and really the start of this week. So starting off tomorrow morning, things looking pretty rough, especially across the central and south central parts of the state. Light sleet going to move into the central part, light freezing rain then further south, and a little bit of snow mix in there across the far north central and northeastern parts of the state. So let's just time this out for you here on Precision Cast. It's going to be right around sunrise, 8 a.m. That's when you're going to start to see a few stray to scattered showers begin to move through. Again, most of this here across the I-44 corridor is likely going to be sleet. The layer of warmer air aloft in the atmosphere is going to be fairly narrow because we've had a lot more drier and colder air move in today. So the unfrozen precip that's going to fall will likely have enough time to refreeze when it comes to the ground in the form of sleet. So sleet in this region, freezing rain a little further south down towards Pauls Valley and Ardmore there by mid-morning and then into the early afternoon. But right around lunchtime then throughout the rest of the afternoon, you're going to start to see a little bit of some yellow popping up in some of these showers and storms. That's going to be a few isolated thunderstorms, so some folks could actually see some thunder sleet develop again across south central and southeastern Oklahoma. But by about 4 or 5 o'clock, most of the sleet and freezing rain is going to be well out of our viewing area here. Western, northwestern Oklahoma, you don't really have all that bad of a Monday tomorrow. So again, temperatures going to be in the upper teens and lower 20s through the first half of your day. Sleet's going to continue from about 7 a.m. up until about lunchtime, and then the rest of our afternoon should remain relatively dry, but still pretty overcast with temperatures in the mid-20s for highs on your Monday. Now, Tuesday is going to be a little bit of a different story. We're going to see a heavier or thicker batch of moisture come across the state, and that freezing rain line is going to nudge a little bit further northward. So freezing rain and sleet expected across central Oklahoma on Tuesday, with freezing rain all across the southern part of the state as well. And once again, a little bit of some snow might mix in there across the far north central and northwestern parts of the state. So here's Tuesday morning. You can see much heavier swath of moisture, freezing rain and sleet moving in across the state there, southwestern, south central Oklahoma. Early Tuesday morning once again. Here's about 9, 10 a.m. Fairly straight as scattered showers moving in across the state. And in similar fashion to how Monday was, most of the precipits pretty much going to be wrapped up by the early afternoon. So both your Monday and Tuesday are mainly going to be morning events between about 7 a.m. up until lunchtime for most of our viewing area. So your evening commutes really shouldn't be all that bad. It's going to be the morning commutes that are going to be a little bit dicey. Tuesday morning going to be much worse than what tomorrow is going to be expected. Now, Wednesday morning, once again, another chance for some freezing rain, mainly south of I-40. So add in Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday morning. Metro area and the I-40 corridor could see anywhere up to about a tenth of an inch of ice. Higher freezing rain total is going to be seen the further south you go. And these areas in purple, that's where you're going to start to see some damage to trees and limbs. A few power lines and power outages are also possible in that area. We're not necessarily expecting that here in the metro, but we could also see sleet accumulations upwards of a quarter of an inch of sleet here across pretty much the entire I-44 corridor. So things, again, going to be pretty icy here the next few days. Wednesday afternoon, going to change over to rain. That's pretty much what it's going to stay like through the rest of Wednesday and Thursday as well. Then by the end of the week, we finally start to look pretty nice. Sunnier skies with temperatures back into the low 50s by Friday and next weekend.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Cairo today. It's the first stop in a short trip to Egypt, Israel, and the West Bank. The secretary will meet separately with Israel's prime minister and the Palestinian Authority president. And according to the State Department, Blinken will discuss the importance of a two-state solution, but he has his work cut out for him as tensions escalate. A top U.S. Air Force official says he has a gut feeling that a war will break out with China in 2025. Four-star General Mike Minihan of the Air Mobility Command shared the prediction in a memo on Friday. In that message, he ordered his team to focus on target practice in the event of live action. He expects China to use the 2024 presidential elections in both the U.S. and Taiwan as an opportunity to strike. The Pentagon has downplayed these claims, though. And leaders in Israel are promising a strong and fast response to a pair of shootings in Jerusalem, which killed 7 and injured 5 others. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced a series of steps against Palestinians. According to his office, the steps include new moves to strengthen Jewish settlements. The United States second gentleman, that is, Douglas Emhoff, condemned those shootings and called it a terrorist attack.
These were people who were just praying in a temple, living their everyday lives, and were murdered in cold blood. And it's not acceptable. And it's something that we need to just stop.
Emhoff, who you just heard from there, is on a 6-day trip abroad, raising awareness about the dangers of anti-Semitism. He visited Auschwitz Friday and is scheduled to discuss that topic in Berlin next week.
Well, we just wrapped up a pretty good NFL Sunday with NFL championship games in the AFC and NFC. Things got testy, which is no surprise considering a trip to the Super Bowl is on the line. Fans got to storm the court in Norman as the Sooners got their biggest win of the season over second-ranked Alabama. OSU did their part as well by taking out Ole Miss as the Big 12 won the Big 12 SEC Challenge. The Thunder continued their winning ways over the weekend, and there was some college football news to get to as well. Those topics and a whole lot more coming up at 10 o'clock on Fox 25 Sports Sunday. We'll be right back.
Today is World Puzzle Day, and the Alzheimer's Association is using today to remind people to use it before they lose it. They encourage people young and old to challenge themselves with a puzzle. They say puzzles exercise the brain, building new neural connections that reduce the risk of Alzheimer's and dementia later in life.
So stretching your brain, exercising your brain is just as important as exercising your body and keeping your heart and lungs and circulatory system healthy. We want to encourage people to use their brains and exercise those as well.
And the Alzheimer's Association says that an estimated 6 million Americans over the age of 65 are living with Alzheimer's, including 67,000 Oklahomans. On a lighter note, Americans will spend a lot on love this year. The National Retail Federation predicts Valentine's Day spending will top $26 billion. That's up about $2 billion from last year. And consumers are expected to spend an average of $192. Certainly ain't cheap. 35 to 44-year-olds plan to outspend the rest with an average of $335 for gifts and Valentine's items.
I don't know about spending money on Valentine's Day, but how about on some bread and eggs?
Yeah.
Before our winter weather arrives the next
good.
few days. Tomorrow, mainly going to be fairly light sleet, but a worse day for winter weather than on Tuesday. Sleet and freezing rain expected throughout the morning and early afternoon. Light rains possible Wednesday and Thursday as well before we finally start to clear on out. Temperature's going to warm back up into the lower 50s with sunnier skies by Friday and the start of next weekend. And Curtis, can you manage a Go Birds for my Eagles tonight or no?
I am a Cowboys fan, but I'm giving it up to you. Yeah, we got an Eagles fan right here. We've already worked it out. He doesn't have to work on the Super Bowl coming up in 2 weeks, so and that's good for him. Ross, enjoy. Congratulations. Your Eagles, of course, we're going to talk about that. We get out of here. We're going to come back for sports. Yeah, look at the Eagles right there. There you go. Go Birds.